Hello, and welcome back to Everything in Potteration, where sometimes the internet can be too much. I'm Michael Barbara.
And I'm Ira Glass.
Welcome back to Job Hunting with NPR.
I'm still Daily, and I'm very confused.
I'm Michael Barbaro, and this is The Daily.
It me.
I wanted to change it up because I feel like I came in with too much like big time YouTuber energy with the last time I drove our episode, and I was just like, I just want to turn it down a little bit, bring out the ASMR voice a little bit.
Speak very softly.
Yeah, job hunting sucks. Hi, I'm Robert, and as a 25-year-old, I already have 20 years in experience and all the relevant things you need for this starter position at the job.
You've been working
guys,
since
did you
you're 5?
know you need experience to get a job, and you need a job to get experience, and you need experience to get a job, and you need a job to get experience, and you need experience to get a job.
Mm-hmm. Which circle of hell is this?
The 10th one.
The one with the LinkedIn ring of hell.
The one we live in right now, basically.
Yeah.
No, that one's just called reality.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, in case you haven't noticed, we're talking about job hunting today. Woo! I really apologize if you're listening to this on Thursday and you're just like, holy fuck, I'm job hunting right now and this hurts.
Join us. We feel your pain.
In this catharsis.
Yeah, in this economy, oof.
Yeah.
You can just say anything, and then in this economy?
In this economy?
And fucking Christ, when is that not accurate anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of background. So Daly and I have been in the job market for a good long while now, and we are both also recent graduates. And so fuse that together with a pandemic makes a pretty good recipe for not finding a job. It's pretty great. It's pretty great, I must say. Robert lucked out, and he was able to find a job pre-pandemic. So Robert, you can walk out now.
All right, guys. See you guys.
Bye, Robert. Fucking loser with a job.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But no, I will say that as a millennial in this day and age, online job hunting, that's just the way you find a job nowadays. No more looking at classifieds, and it's fucking tough out here. I'm sure a lot of you guys listening can really relate. And so we wanted to take this episode to talk about the experience of online job hunting, because obviously it's extremely relatable. Also, job hunting in a pandemic, and also job hunting as a recent graduate can be pretty tough too. We want to touch on our experiences, what the do's and don'ts are if we have any. Talk about maybe talk about resumes, talk about job interview experiences, and things like that. So without further ado, I want to actually kick it off to you guys to start off and to talk about your job hunting experience online so far, and anything that might go with that. So we'll start with Daly.
Tears and pain. No, genuinely, I wasn't the most optimistic to begin with, because right when I graduated, two of my very final classes in my grad program were on Zoom because of the pandemic. And at the time it was just like, oh, it'll just be another month of this. Oh, it'll just be another month of this. It'll just be another month.
Intervene real quick. Yeah. So Daly and I were in the same grad program, and Daly finished up 3 months after I did. So I got really lucky. I just missed the pandemic.
Yeah, you had a bit of a head start.
Yeah, by a couple months. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So I knew that just with that and my own personal situation moving out of Seattle, that things weren't looking the brightest in terms of the job market. But I guess I thought that it will sound sad, but do not pity me, that I'd have a job by now. I thought that I'd have a job by now. We're coming up on a year. And in that year, I took most of the summer to just, settle down and figure out what was the next steps. And for me, that was applying to jobs. So all through fall, all through this winter, been applying to jobs. I have my little Excel sheet, about 100 different positions, and nothing so far, guys, but you gotta hold the faith. Otherwise, what else will happen? You'll get sad. But I mean, it's just a weird time. I knew that it was going to feel weird not having a job after having had two simultaneously while I was in grad school, and then having just this big gulf of time that I haven't previously experienced. I've been in school my whole life, so yeah, it's just a lot of applications and not really having a lot of, I guess, expectations of where, like, hearing back at this point. Not to be really bleak about it, but there it is. That's my experience.
Yeah, a lot of my experience also echoes daily, and I also wanted to just kind of shout out to that being a graduate fresh out of college, and because Daly and I and really all of us were in school for such a long time, and sort of leaving school, no one really talks about too much about, firstly, post-grad depression, but secondly, that lack of structure that can really throw you for a loop, because you go from having all these classes, having a part-time job, maybe you were in clubs, maybe you had extracurricular activities. If you moved away after school, maybe you were used to having a certain group of friends that you'd hang out with. So there was just a certain structure there, and you go from having all of this structure to almost none of it, and now you're wholly reliant on, scheduling your own stuff out, structuring your life, and keeping yourself in check and making sure you're taking care of your responsibilities. And so that becomes extremely difficult. And then throw on top of that you have the anxiety of making sure you can find a job and you have some sort of financial stability. And that becomes, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of stress. And in our case, throwing a pandemic. Woo!
Ooh, bonus, challenger mode.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and so it's tough. It's tough out here. But I also wanted to toss it to you, Robert, because you got lucky. You just, things work out time wise. You got to get out before the pandemic. But even that, I remember it took you a while.
Yeah, I mean, even before then, like I think one thing we shouldn't misconstrue here is that, yes, the pandemic does make things hard, but even without the pandemic, I think in general, searching for a job is so difficult because there's so
Absolutely.
much. There's such a narrative of like, it's part of the American dream, right? In that if you just work hard enough, people will notice that you work hard, and that's really all you need to succeed and get married and have kids and all that shit. That's a fucking lie. It doesn't really.
It is.
It really doesn't matter how hard you work, unless you do something exceptional, like literally actually newsworthy. Like if you make a headline at either your local paper or even national news, international news, then that's when your hard work pays off. Otherwise, it's kind of just about who you know. Because I got out of college, no connections really in the industries I wanted to do. So I kind of just like cold applied to a bunch of games journo sites, which now I still work at one of them and I'm an editor at one of them, which is fun. But, I mean, that's not like, like with the school I went to, the funnel would have been me working at the local newspaper there, which I wasn't really a fan of that concept. And since that wasn't what I wanted to do, sucks to suck. I've got nothing at that point based on like college, right?
Mm.
So even while working those game journal jobs, I applied to a bunch of like copywriting gigs, a few journalism gigs, but like more entertainment journalism stuff. Lots of like marketing strategy type of things, social media, like editor type of stuff. None of them bit back. And then I just worked retail for a while.
Yep.
Yeah, which sucks. It really
Retail
does.
fucking sucks.
Retail sucks, which is why I never worked retail. I worked a counter though, and that was as close as I wanted to be, and that still sucked.
I mean, I still think it's valuable for everyone to work some retail. I think that humbles and tempers everyone in a way that I think most people need just to have a better perspective of the world around them.
Absolutely.
But retail, especially if you're working like sales associate stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's often not something that many people aspire to do. And
No.
it's a shame in that I'm sure there are people out there who are really good at that job, for sure. Like they're people and they're organized and they just kind of enjoy being on their feet and all that. But retail can also be seen as like kind of a fallback. Like, you know, I went into school to do screenplay or something, and then I failed. So now I work, or either retail or food service. Now I'm a waiter at a restaurant. Now I, you know, work at Sephora or something, right? And now that it's kind of seen more as like the backup plan or the fallback plan or the crutch, it's just, it feels like defeat, and it kind of makes you feel like the whole job hunt has been pointless, you know?
Yeah. It can be a little bit demeaning. Especially if you just got out of school or you have like a degree and you're really looking to get something in your field, and then you're stuck working whatever job just to pay the bills, you know. That can be extremely frustrating. I mean, there's a million and one, you know, people in LA, for instance, that, you know, they want to be actors, but they're working a wait job, you know, trying to land that big gig. Obviously, it's just, you know, just working in a professional industry can be a little bit different. Acting is a little bit more like marketing yourself and creative and chance based. That's just a hard industry to get into.
I would argue most jobs are that. Like actors, it's obvious because it's on the front of it, right? Like obviously your job is to look and talk as well as possible, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's a little hint of that to every job. Like you need to look like a better engineer than you actually are. You need to look like a better marketing strategist than you actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's very high expectations, I feel like, for any job that you apply to. Something that I guess has like bothered me is that, you know, Colin made the joke of you need experience to get the job, but to get the job, you need experience, is that it feels like a lot of jobs in this era, as opposed to maybe previous eras that our parents and our grandparents grew up in, the job in question wants you to have that experience versus like, we're going to give you the opportunity to learn on the job and we're going to keep you for years and years and years. So you're going to have learned how to do this the way that we like to do this. And we're okay with putting in that investment that you don't know everything going in to this position, but you'll learn on the way. Whereas now, you know, entry level positions, it feels like they want you to already have it all, you know, all down. They want you to have all the skills, all the experience, and then you'll figure it out from there. You
know, and God forbid if you're like an introvert who's like adverse to networking too, because being extroverted is such an advantage when it comes to networking and reaching out to people, 'cause especially being someone who goes into a competitive industry like tech or video games, networking is like night and day. Like that's going to make or break your whether or not you get in. Like it's just so hard to throw in an application cold and just hope you get in somewhere. And it's so incredibly frustrating too. And so you just got to be, I mean, you should be reaching out to people, especially if you're getting your first job out of college, more than you should be just cold putting in applications. You should be doing both, but you really should spend a lot of time reaching out to people.
Yeah.
And don't get discouraged if you don't hear back too.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating, the idea that you know, by now it's an old tip that networking is the way that you get the job, but previous to that, and I think still today, there's a narrative push where it's like, oh, well, you know, the job market is a meritocracy. If you're just good enough, like Robert was saying, you can get the job. When it's like, that's not the case at all. We got, you know, flunkies that shouldn't be having jobs, or at least that specific position, getting the position because of who they know. And, you know, that's not necessarily always the case. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but I think the rule is it's who you know.
Yeah. I mean, so with the Games Journal job I have now, where I'm an editor there, we do get the occasional application. And that, you know, so that puts me on the other side of this whole job application, I guess, communication, right? But I don't see it as like we don't have a formal HR department who like screens everything and all that stuff, right?
Right.
Like it's not so corporatized that there's like 8 hoops you have to jump to before an application even gets to the eyes of someone who would really determine whether or not you get that job. And in those, I like to personally prioritize the content and quality of the writing as opposed to like experience necessarily. Like, yes, if you have like 5-10 years of experience doing a thing, obviously like I will see, okay, cool, like you seem to at least know what you're doing to be in the game for that long. But even if you have 5 or 10 years of experience, but your writing is not great.
What a diplomatic way of putting that.
That's something that like people will notice, right? So it's kind of tough to say, like, yeah, it's tough to say that, you know, even if you do a lot of good work, it won't be seen. But at the same time, if you don't do good work and people see that you don't do good work, that can also be a problem, right? And that kind of brings me to my big whole point with job hunting, which is something that I felt when I was like really in the trenches with it, is that you need to know everything and nothing because none of it matters, but also all of it matters.
Yeah.
That's what job hunting feels like.
My brain just went numb.
Yeah.
I hate it. Thanks.
Yeah, because there's so many rules, right? There's so many things like it's better to email the hiring manager and talk to them directly and say like, hey, I see you work here. So that, you know, that would help you, you know, be on the radar more of these hiring managers. But then if you Google enough, you'll see hiring managers say like, don't do that. That's annoying. And I'm going to be less likely to pick you up, you know? Yep. So what are you supposed to do there? They say practice an elevator pitch, but when's the last time you've walked up to a hiring manager and said, hi, do you have 30 seconds? Here's me. You know?
It's me.
Yeah. That brings me to a point that I actually do want to talk to you guys about is how much conflicting information there is about the job hunt process and what you should and shouldn't do, because it can be incredibly discouraging, incredibly frustrating, because maybe you get into a thing where, oh, I'm doing everything right. I got my resume formatted correctly. I got the keywords in there. You know, I'm applying to the right jobs. I'm reaching out to the right people maybe too. And you're still not getting calls back. And you look up all this information like, oh, should I put my resume as a PDF? Should I put it as a Word document? And there's like conflicting information about that because, you know, applicant tracking software, ATS stuff is a thing. And so you don't know what's going to pick you up. And also contacting recruiters, like what kind of information do they want? Like scheduling a talk. When should you reach out to them? Who should you reach out to and how? It's all just super cagey. Oh, whether or not to write a cover letter. That's my favorite one because it's always like, no, absolutely not. Don't waste your fucking time writing a cover letter because nobody reads it. Like they spend 6 seconds reading your resume. You think they're going to read a cover letter? The only reason they read a cover letter is because they like your resume and they decide you may be a good candidate for the job. So then they read your cover letter. Yeah.
I find that funny because a lot of the jobs I was applying to, right, were like writing related ones. And in those ones, it's like imperative that you write a cover. Like the cover letter is about as important as the resume itself because
that makes sense.
That like is an expression of it's literally one of the few times you can show off how you would do in the job in the application.
As a writing sample. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the biggest conflicting pieces of, I guess, advice that I get is, I see a lot about like, you should emphasize that you're a self-starter, that you take initiative, that you're okay with working alone. You're very self-directed. You're, say, a Sigma male. You're able to
beyond the alpha.
You're beyond the alpha. You're very self-driven, et cetera, and then also, but at the same time, you got to be a team player. You have to, you know, be very willing to work with people. You have to, you know, be always checking in with your team. You got to be a team player. I guess that would maybe more of a gamma male. I don't know. Future episode, guys. Little tidbit here. But it's like, which one, like, is it worse to emphasize one or over the other? It's hard because you oftentimes don't know exactly what the situation you're going to be like. Where are you going to be part of a team? Are you going to be, that you have to be the Sigma male self-starter working on your own on a project solo? You don't know.
Yeah. What I've learned from my experience is the answer is yes.
To both.
Yes.
It's
to everything.
It's to yes to everything. You literally, it's all of it is so subjective and so incredibly situational, and it literally can boil down to what the recruiter feels like that day. Like, I saw this application and it was hitting me the right way today, but it wasn't hitting me the right way yesterday. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it boils down to. So you should probably try any and everything, and don't be afraid to change up your strategy.
I wonder what it's like for recruiters to apply to things, to apply to recruiting. Like, do they know all the tricks? Do they have it down?
I don't know.
There's got to be some sort of irony there.
I've seen a few recruiters on on LinkedIn. I've noticed a few, they have a history in like retail. Like, usually they work themselves up to be like managers at retail, so they seem to be very like people person type of people, which makes sense, right? As a recruiter, you're always reaching out to people and getting to know them to know if they'd be a good fit for X company. I'm not saying that's what every recruiter has gone through. That's
wonder.
a trend I've noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, I really wonder what the
what is the other side like?
Reach out to us.
Yeah, recruit us.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Job, please. But no, yeah. So that's the frustrating thing, and I think the most I've seen about job applications nowadays, especially online, is if you're putting in your application, usually with bigger companies, like corporations, what have you, your resume is most likely going to go through an ATS, which is an applicant tracking software. It's basically a software that goes through and scans the text of your resume and looks for keywords that have to do with the job description that you applied for. And how to get through this software, there is so much conflicting information out there. It's batshit insane. There's because it's a common practice, and I actually didn't know this until a couple years ago, to actually upload your resume as a PDF, right? Because especially if you use some sort of software to format your resume, you don't want to risk it messing up the format by the time it gets to the recruiter, right? Because a PDF, they'll see it as it's supposed to be. Whereas obviously a Word document, you run the risk of somebody can fuck with your resume when they get it, or it doesn't show up in the right format. However, the conflicting information is whether or not ATS can read PDF format, because some people say it can, some people say it can't. There's also different ATS softwares that different companies use, so it wholly depends. Some ATS softwares apparently only read your PDF resume as an image, so they don't get any sort of keywords out of it at all. Whereas some other ones just compile all the words in a long list, and it just looks for those singular words.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not even getting into considering those applications. I went through a lot of these where it's like, cool, upload your resume. Now input every line of your resume.
God, why is manually. That? I hate that. It's like, it's right there. It's right there. It's over there. And they're like, no, we want it in our own software, etc., which sometimes feels like a guessing game of like, okay, which keyword is going to get me in? Like, which is the magic password here? Like, is it Java? Is it JavaScript? Is it HTML? What is it?
Yeah. Those are extremely frustrating, and the reason why they do that is to get around formatting with their resume. So they, in a sense, do it for your benefit, but at the same time, it's extremely frustrating. And they also use it to weed out applicants.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to take the time, then they don't want you anyway.
There's a frightening amount of time, energy, and algorithms that go into weeding people out. And recently I learned, this made headlines and angry tweets the other day, that Google does allow, job ad software to just nix anyone that does not choose to identify as either male or female on job application softwares. It's just like, if you don't choose one or the other, then you're not considered.
Those optional questions that they put in every application process, they're like, identify your gender, identify whether or not you're disabled. Are you a veteran? What's your ethnicity? You know, those always weird me out, because it's like, why do you need to know that? You know,
there's reasons. There's reasons, but
I get the diversity argument. That I understand.
You got to hit a quota. We have to have enough black people in the office, so that way we're diverse, right?
Got to have our token black guy.
Name Token.
Mm-hmm. From South Park.
We need
God, what a good
just
joke.
the guy from South Park. What do you mean he's a fictional character?
Yeah.
You know, I have always wondered about that too, because so I'm half Filipino. I identify as half Asian, half American. And I also know that my skin is white enough that I pass for white, right? Like if the average person sees me, I would totally understand if they didn't even know I was Asian in any way, shape, or form. So I've kind of come to terms with that on a personal basis. But when I apply for jobs or like the census or whatever, right, where they ask that ethnicity question, I do always put down Asian because that's who I am, like genetically, and I'm just proud of it. And it isn't until, I guess, fairly recently, like in the past year or two, where I've kind of been considering, like, I wonder if because I put down Asian in the ethnicity and in almost all the job apps I've done, I wonder if that's affected whether or not I've even been like, if the algorithm even cared about anything else on my resume, you know, even though like if you had saw a mugshot of me, well, not a mugshot, a snapshot,
what'd you do, Robert?
I don't know.
To get a mugshot.
Look, I keyed my own car. It was a real kerfuffle.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, I mean, if you see a picture of me, I think like you wouldn't, depending on the person, you wouldn't see me and then like tick that checkbox of like, oh, he's Asian.
Yeah. So has that, I mean, I'm sure it wholly depends on where you're applying to, but like, has that given you the thought that like, hey, like maybe they're looking for a diversity hire, and so that sort of thing?
I mean, I don't know. I've never like felt it, but I guess I've only gotten very few like callbacks. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how job apps work, I guess.
Yeah. It as a woman, it makes me wonder, especially since I'm in the tech field, that when I apply to things, it's like, does that like make a little sensor go off? Like, whoa, a woman applied for this.
Woman alert.
Woman alert.
Woman alert.
Woman alert.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, you know, that, hey, we got another cis white male fucking milquetoast, whatever dude. Just throw him on the pile with the rest of them. Like, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it probably just depends on the company, but that stuff definitely feels a little, I don't know, it feels a little weird. But I do want to bring up too that, and I posted it in our Discord chat some time ago about there was a little experiment that this guy did, and this article was from 2017, where this guy created a bot that he made apply to, it was like 500 some jobs over the course of like 3 months.
That's
and he would switch out some of the information every once in a while, but I think out of those 500 jobs, I think he only heard back from 50 of them. Most of them were no's, and he got, I think, 14 interviews out of it, all of which were at smaller companies. That should tell you something. All of which were at smaller companies. And
so Microsoft, Amazon.
Yeah.
Those kind of small companies, right?
Yeah, exactly. But he never heard back from the big ones. And I think he ended up getting like 7 or so offers out of it. And he told them during that interview that he used a bot to apply for that job, and they were okay with it, which was funny. But that should go to show that, like, holy shit, you know, what's going on with these job postings from these bigger companies? You know what I'm saying? And that led me down a rabbit hole of learning. Apparently, there's a lot of companies that put up job postings even after they'd already filled the job. So that's a thing. They do it because it's a formality for HR. It's like it's a company policy thing. So chances are there is a good chance rather that the job that you are applying to has already been filled if it's for a bigger company.
I'm getting duped.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's why I think when I was job searching, I'd always try to look for like posted within the last day or two. You know, like if the job's been sitting around for 28 plus days, it's like, even if it was your dream job, you know, that's very low chance, no matter how good you are. You know what I
In
mean?
this economy, yeah.
In this economy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is if a job's been sitting there for like 30 days, it's probably already been filled, or they just completely forgot about it. Yeah. This job is no longer available. But yeah, so just the sheer amount of bullshittery that comes along with the job app process is just insane. And you'll notice too, like all the different websites you apply on, LinkedIn being the biggest one. A lot of them have like easy apply stuff, and you'll notice that the most applications happen on the easy apply stuff because people are going to throw their resume at the easiest stuff to apply to all the time.
Right.
And I think I've maybe gotten an actual callback about like, hey, you didn't get the job once from like doing one of those easy apply things. So yeah, it's a mess.
And that's what's so frustrating me about this with that, like, so you just told that story about the guy who used the bot to beat the bots, because that's what most, if not all of these big job like application softwares do, is they're all just bots that scour your text, your resume to see if you mention the word Java a lot. Like you could be applying as like a business major marketing person, but then you could just throw the words Java in there, and if the bot picks that up and it for some reason is thinking I'm looking for someone with Java, you have a higher chance for some reason, even if your day-to-day job wouldn't have anything to do with Java whatsoever, which seems so silly to me. And it just goes back to that whole like how you upload your resume. Like even if you upload it, you have to input it manually, and it's just what I think bothers me the most about all of that is that LinkedIn is a fucking thing. Like LinkedIn is that. It's the resume that we can all have that is in a uniform style, and everyone can see it, everyone can use it. And if we're going to use bots anyway, why don't we just all use bots on something that would save everyone time and would allow everyone to put the best effort they can to make their LinkedIn look the best, because they want to look good. They want to have the best first impression. And it's going to be hard to have that best first impression when you're trying to make 50 best first impressions across 50 different job applications that require you to input your job app 50 different ways.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point. And I will say too that there are actually a lot of job application processes that do ask if you either want to apply with LinkedIn or add in your LinkedIn profile along with your application. I don't know if that actually makes a difference in terms of the ATS software. But I mean, at least that's there. I don't know if it's doing the job that you proposed, though. In fact, I doubt it. I will say, though, that oh gosh, I lost my thought.
I can jump in with a counter argument.
Yeah.
So I think what some people might say if you're like an HR for a company, right, is that the reason there are so many hurdles is because we want someone who wants to be part of the family.
You gotta want it.
Yes. And I do have some problems with the family rhetoric when it comes to, capitalist corporations. But I can empathize with that sentiment of you want someone who really wants to be part of the team because you think they're going to gel better with the team. But I also think that mentality refuses to humanize the kind of person that is applying for a job to survive. Just period. Like pandemic aside, just pretend that didn't happen and everyone's happy and free. Like you still need money to like do.
Yeah. Isn't that weird? That's what it comes down to. It's like, can I survive? Like, can you be my means to survival so that I can pay for food and housing is what you're basically asking when you're applying to jobs. And, sometimes when I've been at my lowest, I've said to my partner, Zach, it's like when I apply to jobs, sometimes it feels like I'm begging for my life. Like, I'm like, please, please, please let me support myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you can't say that. If someone's like, why do you want the job? Why do you want the job?
I want money.
I like eating.
Groceries.
We live in a society.
We live in a society.
I have rent to pay. Yeah, and I've also seen the counter argument to that. Like, well, yeah, obviously they know that. So like, why do you want this job? Like specifically, why do you want this job in particular? And by the way, I did remember what I was going to say earlier, and the reason why they don't use the LinkedIn stuff, at least for larger companies, I would imagine it's probably bullshit bureaucracy stuff.
Well, doesn't
because
Microsoft own LinkedIn, right?
do they?
Facebook.
Or is it Is it Facebook?
Facebook is LinkedIn is the business Facebook.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's wild. That's kind of scary to think about, isn't it? God, they rule every
Yet
part of our lives, don't
another
they?
social network. But
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot to it that is just dehumanizing like that, where it's like, no, you have to fake that you're a very passionate person about, X, Y, and Z. And even times when like you're like, oh, I could really see myself enjoying this job, it still feels like you have to fake a lot of enthusiasm for certain things, when it's like, just look at my work. Let's decide if that means I'm a good fit for this or not.
Yeah, and I'd also like to circle back to the idea of here we're family ideology at a company.
Family.
That is an incredibly toxic way to look at a workplace. And if a job heavily relies on that rhetoric, turn the other way, run away, because it's incredibly toxic. It's a way to help keep you in a toxic environment should it turn extremely toxic. And a lot of the times when it comes to salary and pay negotiation, they can lowball you.
Yeah. Well, because you want to take the lower salary for the family.
For the
To help,
family.
to help us.
You
Help
care
everyone.
about what we do here at packing and shipping Amazon.com.
Corporation.
Oh, I was going to just straight up call out like all the, fulfillment centers, which is such they really patted themselves on their back when they were like, okay, so like the shipping places, we're going to call them fulfillment centers because you feel fulfilled and we fulfill the wishes of others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that gets into the whole debate of like unionization and the ethics behind that. Which, by the way, unionize. Unions.
Period.
That's the phrase. That's
Get
the
yourself-
sentence. That's the whole statement. Unionize.
Yeah, get yourself fucking paid because you deserve it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the family rhetoric either, but I also don't want to like swing the complete other way, because I think if you're going to be working there, I mean, might as well like get to know people, make friends. Like they don't have to be your best friends or anything, but like
No.
it can just feel a little more comfy. Like even if you're an introvert, just to like know the person in the cubicle next to you or whatever a little better, like that's nice.
Mhm.
But you don't need to be like, we're gonna go on our family retreat this weekend, like our corporate camping trip this weekend
Mandatory.
and enjoy it. Yeah, like it's funny in The Office with Steve Carell and his funny jokes, but in real life, like
Fucking imagine working somewhere like that.
Oh my
No.
god. That's the thing,
No.
guys, is you just can't get overly attached to a company. It's just it's unhealthy. It's really it is. It's unhealthy with the way the job market works in this country. And especially speaking as someone who's going into the games industry, job security, pardon the pun, is not the name of the game in that industry. It's just not. You whether you like it or not, you're likely going to be moved around every year or 2 years. Or either that or you're getting the hell out and you're going somewhere else. In fact, I've talked to people in the industry that have actively encouraged me to be like, hey, you spend a year or two and then you want to find another gig. You want to get it. You want to slap as many companies, as much experience on your resume as possible, at least for the first, half a decade to a decade of your career.
and then you become the next Hideo Kojima.
Right.
You change
Exactly.
your name legally to Hideo Kojima, and then
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and then you can just apply to jobs, and they'll be like, "Of course, we're gonna hire Hideo Kojima."
Hideo Kojima, I didn't know he worked at Sucker Punch.
And then suddenly it's just this white kid coming in, and it's like, wait,
Wait, who? What? But yeah, all that is to say, know your worth. Have a good idea of what you want to be paid. If you're listening to this and you're kind of like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I on this note too, I do want to talk about, there was the topic of salary brought up on LinkedIn. They were talking about when is the best time in an interview process to bring up salary, like how much you want to be paid or how much the job is paying. And people were talking about like, is it in good faith to bring up how much the job pays, and like, should you be the one to bring it up in the first interview? And that was a highly contested topic. Like, people were going back and forth. It's like, hell yeah. Like, I'm not, if the job doesn't pay well, then I want nothing to do with this job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, that's the make or break point for any job. Like, what do you guys think? What's your take?
It's my hope.
I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
I guess it's my hope that in the future, I think there's way less. Right now, I think there's already starting to be way less taboo about asking about pay and, demystifying that so that we know where we stand in terms of like where our coworkers are, making sure that everyone's being compensated fairly. And I'm hoping that the trend continues so that in the future, it's not a weird thing to ask about and it can be brought up pretty quick.
Yeah, I think this whole weird culture of like being shifty around how much you get paid is, I think it helps perpetuate the myth that like if you don't talk about it, then you will kind of accept whatever pay you get because it feels like it's good enough, right? And that can be pretty damaging if you live in a city like New York and your minimum wage isn't even remotely able to get you to live in a decent apartment. I don't even need like lavish anything, like just a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment or even a studio. You might not be able to get that on minimum wage in some cities in America, and
in any city in America.
Yeah, kind of.
And
even
by the way, it's more expensive to live, and by a pretty large margin, to live in New York than it is Seattle. And so Seattle's, at the time of this recording's minimum wage is $16.63. They just moved it up from $15 to $16. In New York, it's $12. $12 an hour.
That's enough to buy like a bagel.
Yeah, New York bagel. Not with everything
I don't
on
know.
it,
It just seems it seems so ironic that a capitalist economy, like America loves its capitalism, like it's kind of horny for capitalism in a way that's really scary almost. But capitalism is it lives and dies by the value of your work, right? Like that's the whole point of it. It's if you work hard, you get results and you get paid because your hard work ethic is what matters. It's what makes you American, right? And it's so funny to say that, but then also say, I'm going to write down your salary on a piece of paper and then secretly hand you the piece of paper so you can look at it and then you can shake your head like we're playing poker and then
That's
you write down
a
a different number.
That's still a thing.
And it's like, no, if we're going to be straightforward about working in a capitalist economy, be straightforward about how much you value yourself and how much the employer is going to value your work.
Exactly.
I think the problem becomes less that people don't value themselves enough, and it's that the employers, dare I sound like the commie here, but the employers want you to devalue yourself or at least underestimate yourself to a point that they're still going to be able to make a pretty wide profit margin off of your labor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea. I mean the way that the economy is set up is it's encouraged to get the cheapest labor possible, right? Because you got to make that profit, baby, make that revenue, and so they're gonna try and undercut you. So it's really important that you know your worth. And there is this strong discouragement in work culture here that if you're working at a place, especially if you work close with coworkers, that you shouldn't discuss what you get paid in your place of work, because apparently that can make apparent the pay disparity. Which, by the way, should be encouraged, because if you know you're getting shafted, you probably want to know that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been to the point where I've read stories on Reddit where people like witnessed fights in their place of work because somebody found out that they're getting paid less than this person under them. Yeah. And just full blown fist fight broke out because of it. And they should have been mad at the employer, but they were mad at each other. They were fighting at each other.
Yeah, because that's what this country is like. That's what capitalism encourages, which is why I think I'm going to finally come clean and tell you guys I am making $50 an hour during our podcast.
Holy
And
shit.
I want to open up the communication here.
Wait, you're getting paid?
I was about to say, where's that meme? Wait, you guys are getting paid? Because I'm not.
Oh, sorry. Actually, I fudged the numbers. I missed the zero. It's actually 500 an
What
hour
the
is how much
fuck?
I'm making with this podcast.
Fuck, bro. Yeah. But yeah, all of this is this. It's just fucking difficult out here. It's tough to get a job. And I feel for you if you're a recent graduate. I mean, I'll be honest. Like to be straightforward, I have been searching for a job essentially since August of last year at the time of this recording. So that's going on 6 months or so. I mean, that's a long time. The last job I had was just a short contract gig for Microsoft. And I mean, that ended and I tried to search a job, try to go through coworkers, and it's just tough. There's a lot of people looking for jobs. It's competitive. A lot of people just, I mean, having a degree is the least you can do at this point, and especially in an industry like this. It's like, oh, you have a degree, yeah, great. So does everybody else.
Mhm.
So that whole like stuff, the whole line that they feed you, you know, in school, where it's like, you know, you'll need this to get a job. We're gonna have a good job because, you know, you went to college and you graduated. I grew up with people that were telling me that, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you have this university on your resume, so it's gonna get you a job, and it's like bullshit. It will, you know. So I mean, it's tough. And before I even got that last job, I was applying for another good 6 months or so. And I've gotten nary an interview. So that just means need to look back on my strategy and reassess. But I mean, I've seen posts on LinkedIn where someone's like, yeah, I finally got a job after I put in actually 500 applications. And I'm like, holy Jesus God.
It's a numbers game at this point, almost.
It is. It's exactly what it is. It's a numbers game. It's a war of attrition. Like how long can you keep putting in applications before you finally get something?
We're gonna find out.
Too, I think. Yeah, I think it was your partner, Daily Zach, that told me one time. I think it was like he put nearly 200 applications in before he got his last job.
That's how we got to Seattle.
Yeah.
Yep. And that was
I'm
originally
like,
just a contracting gig that luckily
what I'm saying.
turned into a full-time gig. But, you know, you got to take what you can grab onto, what's offered to you sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, grab your rabbit's foot, rub the belly of the Buddha, do whatever you got to do, pray, and then put in those applications and reach out to people, baby.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's tough. It is. But yeah, I think that's like a lot of the main points that I wanted to hit. Did you guys want to bring anything else up?
I kind of think it's worth maybe diving a little bit into freelance as well, because I know Daly and we have also
Yes.
done a lot of freelance work, which is very different from applying to be part of the family, right? At any corporation, where instead, you know, you make your own hours. And I think with freelance gigs, I think I alluded to it a little bit before with like the games journalism job I have, but there's more of a sense of like it doesn't feel like you're jumping through as many hoops. I feel like in freelance, that is when the adage of your work, the quality of your work is your application. I think that's where that is the most relevant and where it feels the most real compared to if you applied to like Microsoft or Google.
Yeah, I'd say that's correct, because in that sense, you're like, hey, I saw that you have X project or X specific work, and I've done that before, or I'm interested in doing that. It becomes less like you're pitching your whole person versus like you're pitching your work. You're pitching your specific skill. That's been my experience with freelancing.
Yeah, and it can be tough. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you freelancing is the right way to go. It really depends on you. But I have noticed I've felt more job security in corporate life than I have in freelance life. And that comes with its own, like mental health benefits in some ways, but you're also a little bit more chained to different processes. Whereas in freelancing, there are parts of me that does miss the freer schedule of it, right? But it depends wholly on the kind of person you are. Like if you're someone who gets stressed out by a lack of structure in your life, you're going to want a 9 to 5 for sure. But if you're someone who's kind of a little more laissez-faire, and if you like going to cafes, if you like going to cafes from like 11 to 7 p.m.
Ooh, fancy.
Like that's,
if
that's
you're fancy,
maybe
be a
freelancing's
freelancer
for you. Sure. But that's I guess an option, but I'm not going to say that freelancing is an easier way to get jobs, because I think it's still a very ruthless market, because there it really is the cut of your content that matters. And as good as you might be, there are many others who are as good, if not even better than you. Right. And I don't mean that to say like to put people down. It's just, I guess in writing specifically, that's just something I've noticed is there's a lot of good writers out there, and that's why they can get paid so well. But it's hard to stand out with your content alone as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that in a sense too, freelancing for the little freelancing that I did do, it can also be something that does help fill out your resume too, if you do want to like kind of leave freelance and go into something else. So it's a good way, like if you're half decent, you have a decent application and you can get into a freelance job, it is a good way to help out your resume. Because I've had a couple of freelance things on my resume that have probably helped me out a little bit. Though I will say though, as a side note, be wary of free internships. Because I have done a free internship, and in that place they did kind of take advantage of people. And I don't know, just don't try to avoid doing stuff for free if
value
you can, even
yourself.
if the pay is something.
Value
yourself. Just don't work for free. Don't do it. Because I mean, it may help out your resume. Sure. If you want to do it, maybe for a short period, maybe that, but I'll never forget this. I was at an internship, and I won't say who, but I was at an internship.
Let's just call it Beth Bezos. Yeah. You were interning under Beth Bezos.
Yes. Oh yeah, Beth. Love Beth.
Biff from Back to the Future. And I'll never forget, somebody else that I was at this internship with was there 40 hours a week for free. And here was this guy that actually got paid to work here, darting into the room where me and the other interns were working in, like telling this dude to do like A, B, and C thing, like just piling all this work on him. And I asked him, I was like, are you like okay with the fact that you're getting paid, you're getting asked to do a lot of stuff and you're not, this isn't paid. Mm-hmm. He's like,
you're
I'm perfect. Yeah. I'm like, I'm fine with like, it's really good experience. And I'm just like, 40 hours a week?
How do you feed yourself?
Yeah. Like Air. I would be
an aeritarian, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't let myself work more than like 5 or 10 hours a week there. Yeah. God forbid. I was just like, it hit like the 2-3 hour mark and I'm like, I'm out. I'm gone. Like, if you're not fucking paying me, I did my job.
Yeah. I agree with that sentiment of don't do anything for free, with the caveat of, I think it is worth doing some things that are free if you already have something else locked down that is sufficient enough for you to live off. Like if you've got a different 40 hours a week job. And
yes,
like I've seen this a lot in my freelance workplace, where like we have people who work a different day job for 40 hours a week and then come home and then write some stories online or something for us. And like it's not free. We still pay them as well. But if you can do that on the side, even for free, you can help build yourself up to where you can do it on the side and make some money off of it. And I think that's a possibility. It takes a lot of hustle, for sure. Don't just sleep on it.
They call it a side hustle.
But I think in some cases there's a justification to work for free as long as you're not harming yourself in the long run.
Right.
Like you have to see it
Right.
as an investment in yourself to make
Exactly.
more money down the line.
Exactly. But if you get places like that, and I will tell you about the place that I was at, they did not disclose to me that it wasn't paid until after I went into the interview. And even then salary, like nothing about salary
Oh,
was
of course
brought up.
not.
And I
Yeah.
had to email them after the interview, be like, hey, so like, is this paid or not? Like, because it was never said once. And in hindsight, I probably should have never taken that internship. The only reason I didn't was because I was in the middle of looking for a job and didn't have anything else to do. So might as well pad my resume in the meantime.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, that was really frustrating. So I don't know, just be wary out there. Keep yourself healthy, be safe.
Value
Treat yourself
yourself.
well.
Value
Exactly.
yourself, because sometimes other people won't. Employers won't.
Yep.
Unfortunate facts of life.
But yeah, if we don't have anything else, I think I'm going to start wrapping her up here. But I hope this has been, if you're out there searching for a job, I feel for you. I will say that, and I hope this offers some sort of catharsis and a little bit of break from the grind. Because when you're applying for jobs, applying for jobs is the job. That is your job.
To be
And
a job hunter.
Yeah, and it can be demeaning. Making the rounds on LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, fucking monster.
Man, that's
Career
my
builder.
favorite Capcom game, Jobster Hunter.
Jobster Hunter.
Jobster Hunter. By the way,
TM.
100%. Quick pro tip: absolutely Glassdoor, the company that you're applying to and really want to get a job at, especially if you interviewed there. Glassdoor, and see what the reviews look like on Glassdoor. They're a great resource. Absolutely. I've seen a couple times where I'm just like, there's this place I applied to and they have 1-star reviews or 2-star reviews. They're like, don't work here for the love of God.
Yeah.
It'll tear your soul
Listen
apart.
to the people that have had experience for sure.
Yeah. But if you like this podcast, you can reach out to us on various social media platforms, including Twitter at Everything in Pod, just like at I Am Such a Twit did. They said, longtime listeners since Tadaima, thank you. First time DMer. Thanks for the coup episode. It might not have been much, but your mention of the situation in Hong Kong and contrasting it with the Trumpist/fascists notion of censorship meant a lot to this Konger and is appreciated, especially from regular folks like yourselves. Things are going from bad to worse on a daily basis, so thank you guys. Anyway, thanks for putting out your pods. They help me keep relatively sane. Hope Daily has a fully recovered. I am a few episodes behind, sorry.
I'm good now,
talking about you
guys. I'm
having
good.
COVID.
I'm good.
Thank you all and take care at I Am Such a Twit.
Yeah, thank you for those words. So kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very kind words. And wow, for coming from Hong Kong too, I'm glad that you could find some sort of solace in that episode because, wow, yeah, Hong Kong, where to even begin about that whole situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good things are getting better in America for sure. As we're recording this on the day that Trump got acquitted from his whole impeachment. Yeah, things are going from bad to better now, right, guys?
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, keep fighting the good fight. Really,
Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
really.
Daly's
can't-
healthy.
I'm healthy.
That's a good thing.
I can smell
It's a plus.
most things now, and I can taste
Uh-huh.
stuff.
It's always a plus.
Always a plus.
But
Believe me,
It's always a plus.
it's a plus.
But hey, much like with job hunting and also fighting authoritarian fascism, don't lose hope. Keep fighting the good fight because we all
Yeah.
deserve some happiness as long as you keep fighting for it. And it shouldn't be this hard. I totally recognize that. It really shouldn't be this hard for both things. But we have to keep working until we can make the world a place where it's easier to be happy.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're listening to this and you are job hunting, just do me a favor, put in one more application today.
Do it.
Just one more.
I'm
Yeah.
about to go.
Just
do
one
that.
more, or
Unless you're
Or that-
driving
that-
right now.
Don't.
Yeah, or unless you're driving.
Don't apply and
or
drive.
if you're thinking about reaching out to that guy that's doing the thing you want to do, or that girl, sorry,
wow, sexist.
do it. Send that message. set up a meeting, get on that Zoom call, talk to them.
Slide into those DMs.
Ask them if they know somebody that needs somebody. All right. That's how this thing works, unfortunately. And I'm sorry if you're an introvert, but you have to do it. It's just something you got to do. But yeah. So again, hope this episode helped. This has been Everything in Potteration. See you guys next week.